Gerald Clark's scarred face twists in discomfort as he steps onto the iridescent surface of the Kazon homeworld. The alien atmosphere burns his lungs, a stark reminder of his mission's gravity. Earth's fate hangs in the balance, and he, the unlikely diplomat, stands as humanity's last hope against the looming Zorn Empire. The spaceport bustles with Kazon activity. Their ethereal beauty strikes Gerald, their flawless skin shimmering under the planet's twin suns. He straightens his posture, pushing aside the familiar pang of self-consciousness. The trade negotiations must succeed, regardless of his appearance. A hush falls over the crowd as Gerald approaches the welcoming committee. Kazon eyes widen, then narrow in disgust. Whispers ripple through the gathering, their musical language carrying unmistakable notes of revulsion. Gerald swallows hard, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. Raya, the lead Kazon negotiator, steps forward. Her lithe form towers over Gerald, her features a perfect blend of angular elegance and soft allure. Her eyes, however, harden as they rake over his face. "This is the human representative?" Raya's voice drips with disdain. "I expected Earth to send their best, not their most disfigured." Gerald's jaw clenches, but he forces a diplomatic smile. "Greetings, negotiator Raya. I am Gerald Clark, here to discuss the trade agreement that will solidify our alliance against the Zorn Empire." Raya's laugh, though melodious, cuts like a knife. "Alliance? With creatures that look like you? Perhaps the Zorn would be preferable company." The assembled Kazon titter, their amusement at Gerald's expense palpable. He feels the weight of Earth's future pressing down on his shoulders. The human-Kazon alliance, vital for Earth's defense, teeters on the brink of collapse before negotiations even begin. Undeterred, Gerald presses on. "Beauty is subjective, negotiator Raya. The strength of our potential alliance lies in our shared values and mutual benefits, not in physical appearances." Raya's expression flickers, a mixture of surprise and something unidentifiable crossing her features. She inhales sharply, then blinks rapidly. "Fine. Let us proceed to the negotiation chambers. Try not to frighten anyone else on the way." As they walk, Gerald notices Raya's gait becoming unsteady. She shakes her head as if to clear it. Unknown to both, Gerald's unique pheromone signature, a result of his scars interacting with the Kazon atmosphere, begins to trigger physiological changes in Raya. Inside the chambers, other Kazon females shift uncomfortably, their bodies responding to Gerald's presence in unexpected ways. Raya's breath quickens, her skin flushing a deeper hue. She glares at Gerald, confusion and anger warring in her eyes. "Let's begin," Gerald says, oblivious to the effect he's having. "Earth needs this alliance. The Zorn fleet approaches our solar system as we speak." Raya nods, struggling to maintain her composure. As she opens the trade agreement documents, her hand trembles slightly. The other Kazon in the room exchange worried glances, sensing a disruption in their carefully regulated social and biological rhythms. Gerald leans forward, ready to fight for Earth's survival, unaware that his very presence is about to upend Kazon society and complicate the negotiations in ways he could never have imagined. The fate of two worlds now rests not just on diplomatic skill, but on the unforeseen consequences of human biology in an alien world. Gerald's heart raced as he delved into the intricacies of the trade agreement, acutely aware of Raya's increasingly erratic behavior. Her initial disdain seemed to melt away, replaced by an unsettling mix of intense focus and visible discomfort. As he spoke about Earth's technological offerings, Raya's eyes locked onto him with an almost predatory gleam, only to dart away moments later as she squirmed in her seat. "Are you feeling all right, negotiator Raya?" Gerald asked, pausing mid-sentence about Earth's advanced terraforming techniques. Raya's skin flushed a deeper shade of blue. "I'm fine," she snapped, her musical voice strained. "Continue." But as the hours wore on, Raya's agitation grew more pronounced. She paced the room, alternating between leaning in too close to Gerald and abruptly backing away. The other Kazon females in the room mirrored her unease, their usual grace giving way to fidgeting and stolen glances at the human diplomat. Concerned about the impact on the negotiations, Gerald excused himself during a recess and sought out Dr. Eliza Chen, the human expedition's xenobiologist. He found her in her makeshift lab, bent over a microscope. "Dr. Chen, I need your expertise," Gerald said, explaining Raya's odd conduct and the general unrest among the Kazan females. Dr. Chen's brow furrowed as she listened. "Interesting. Let me run some tests." Over the next few hours, as Gerald attempted to salvage the faltering negotiations, Dr. Chen worked tirelessly. She analyzed air samples, ran scans on the human team, and pored over Kazan biological data. As the second day of talks began, with Raya noticeably absent, Dr. Chen pulled Gerald aside. Her face was grave as she delivered her findings. "Gerald, it's you," she said, her voice low. "Your unique pheromone signature, likely a result of your scarring, is being amplified by the Kazan atmosphere. It's triggering a premature breeding response in Kazan females." Gerald's stomach dropped. "What? How is that possible?" "Your scars have altered your body chemistry in ways we didn't anticipate. The effect is particularly strong on Raya due to her prolonged exposure to you." Before Gerald could fully process this information, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Commander Sarah Hawkins, head of security, burst into the room. "We've got a situation," she said, her voice tense. "A group of young Kazan males are rioting outside. They're not happy about the females' interest in you, Gerald." Through the windows, Gerald could see the chaos unfolding. Kazan males hurled objects at the embassy, their faces contorted with rage. Human security personnel formed a protective barrier, their non-lethal weapons at the ready. "We need to get you to safety," Commander Hawkins said, grabbing Gerald's arm. As they rushed through the embassy corridors, reports flooded in. The Kazan High Council was in emergency session. Rumors spread of increased aggression and unexplained attraction to Gerald among the female population. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the building. Smoke filled the air as Gerald and Commander Hawkins were thrown to the ground. "The rioters have breached the outer defenses," a voice crackled over the comm system. Commander Hawkins dragged Gerald to his feet. "To the panic room now!" They raced through the chaos, the sounds of fighting growing closer. As they reached the panic room, a shadowy figure emerged from a side corridor. "Stop right there!" Commander Hawkins shouted, raising her weapon. The figure stepped into the light, revealing Raya's familiar features. Her usual composure was gone, replaced by a wild, almost feral look. "I need to speak with him," Raya said, her voice a mixture of desperation and anger. Another explosion rocked the building. Commander Hawkins made a split-second decision. "Both of you, inside, now!" She shoved Gerald and Raya into the panic room, sealing the door behind them. The sounds of battle became muffled as the room's defenses activated. Gerald pressed himself against the far wall, acutely aware of Raya's proximity in the confined space. Her breath came in short gasps, her skin shimmering with a light sheen of sweat. "What's happening to me?" Raya demanded, her eyes never leaving Gerald's face. "What have you done?" Gerald swallowed hard, trying to maintain his composure. "Raya, I can explain. It's not what you think." Outside, the riot raged on. Inside the panic room, tension crackled between Gerald and Raya like electricity. As the night wore on, Gerald found himself trapped between the chaos of the embassy under siege and the increasingly unpredictable Raya, her physiological responses intensifying with every passing moment. In her lab, Dr. Chen worked feverishly to develop a pheromone suppressant, knowing that the fate of the negotiations, and possibly Earth itself, hung in the balance. But as she reviewed her initial test results, a new worry gnawed at her. Suddenly blocking the pheromones could have severe withdrawal effects on those already exposed, potentially putting Raya's life at risk. As dawn approached, the situation teetered on a knife's edge. The trade negotiations lay in shambles, Kazan society was in upheaval, and Earth's hopes for an alliance against the Zorn Empire seemed to be slipping away. And at the center of it all, a scarred human diplomat and the alien who once mocked him found themselves locked together, both their worlds transforming in ways neither could have imagined. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the smoke-filled air, the cacophony of the riot began to subside. Commander Sarah Hawkins surveyed the damage from a shattered window, her face etched with exhaustion and relief. The angry mob of Kazan males was finally dispersing, leaving behind a trail of destruction that would take weeks to repair. Inside the panic room, Gerald and Raya stirred from their uneasy night of confinement. The air was thick with tension and the lingering scent of Gerald's pheromones. As the door hissed open, Raya stumbled forward, her legs weak from the prolonged exposure. Gerald instinctively reached out to steady her, his scarred hands grasping her shoulders. The moment their skin made contact, Raya gasped. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating as a surge of attraction coursed through her body. She clung to Gerald, her fingers digging into his arms, as she fought against the overwhelming urge to press herself closer. "Raya, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" Gerald began, but his words were cut short as Dr. Eliza Chen burst into the room, her lab coat askew and her eyes wild with urgency. "Gerald, Raya, we have a situation," Dr. Chen panted, holding up a data pad. "It's not just the Kazan females. Your pheromones are affecting the entire ecosystem." Gerald gently disentangled himself from Raya, who seemed torn between disgust at her own actions and an irresistible pull towards him. "What do you mean, the ecosystem?" he asked, his brow furrowing. Dr. Chen swiped through a series of images on her pad. "Look at these plants near the embassy. They're growing at an accelerated rate, and the local wildlife? Their mating behaviors have completely changed. It's like your presence is jump-starting dormant genetic expressions across the board." As if to underscore her point, a vine outside the window suddenly sprouted, its tendrils reaching towards the sky with visible speed. Commander Hawkins joined them, her uniform smeared with soot. "That's not our only problem. We've just received word that Supreme Leader Zorax has issued a decree." "What kind of decree?" Gerald asked, acutely aware of Raya's labored breathing beside him. "He's suspended all traditional Kazan mating customs," Hawkins replied. "The High Council is in an uproar. Half of them are calling for Zorax's head." Raya's eyes snapped into focus at this news. "Impossible," she hissed. "Our mating customs are sacred. This will tear our society apart." Before anyone could respond, a commotion outside drew their attention. Through the damaged windows, they could see a group of young Kazan females marching towards the embassy, carrying signs with slogans in both Kazan and English. "Embrace change for Kazan future," Gerald read aloud. "What's going on?" Dr. Chen peered at the crowd. "It looks like a counter-protest. They're supporting us?" As they watched, a Kazan female with striking purple eyes stepped forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "I am Lyra," she announced. "We stand with the humans and Supreme Leader Zorax. The old ways are killing us. We need this change." The group erupted in cheers, their voices drowning out the angry shouts from a smaller group of conservative Kazan who had gathered nearby. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Commander Hawkins's communicator crackled to life. "Commander, we've detected an unidentified ship entering the system. It's cloaked, but our new sensors picked it up. Zorn design." Gerald's heart raced. "They're here already? We're not ready." Dr. Chen grabbed Gerald's arm. "We need to get you and Raya to the medical unit immediately. I can't separate you two yet. It could be dangerous for Raya in her current state." As they hurried through the corridors, Raya stumbled again, her body racked with tremors. Gerald caught her, and this time, she didn't pull away. "What's happening to me?" she whispered, her voice a mix of fear and longing. "Your body's gone through rapid changes," Dr. Chen explained as they entered the sterile confines of the medical unit. "You're essentially addicted to Gerald's pheromones now. Separating you could cause severe withdrawal symptoms." Gerald helped Raya onto a bed, acutely aware of the softness of her skin and the way her eyes never left his face. "I'll stay with her," he said. "It's the least I can do." As Dr. Chen bustled around, setting up monitoring equipment, Commander Hawkins received another transmission. Her face grew grim as she listened. "Gerald," she said, her voice low. "I just got word from Earth. They want you to do whatever it takes to secure this alliance. Whatever it takes." Gerald nodded, the weight of two worlds settling on his shoulders. He looked at Raya, seeing past her initial cruelty to the vulnerability in her eyes. For the first time, he noticed flecks of gold in their violet depths. Raya reached out, her fingers tracing the scars on Gerald's cheek. "I was wrong about you," she murmured. "Your scars, they're not ugly. They're the key to our survival. Outside the medical unit, chaos continued to unfold. Lyra and her supporters clashed with the conservatives, their shouts echoing through the embassy. In orbit, the cloaked Zorn ship silently gathered intelligence, its crew eagerly reporting on the planet's turmoil. As night fell once more on the Kazon homeworld, Gerald held Raya's hand, watching as Dr. Chen pored over data on her screens. The doctor's eyes widened as new information scrolled across her display. "Gerald," she breathed, "your scars. They're not just amplifying your pheromones. They're creating an entirely new compound, one that could change everything." In the distance, the sound of explosions rumbled. The conflict between the progressive and conservative Kazon factions was escalating. Time was running out, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. Gerald squeezed Raya's hand, his dedication strengthening. Whatever came next, he was ready to face it. Scars and all. All. As Gerald met Raya's gaze, he sensed a profound shift in their relationship. The once haughty diplomat now looked at him with a mixture of awe and purpose. Their moment of connection was shattered by the sudden appearance of Commander Hawkins, her face etched with concern. "Gerald, we have a situation. Supreme Leader Zorax is here, demanding to see you." Gerald's eyebrows shot up. "Zorax, here?" Dr. Chen interjected, her voice tinged with worry. "Gerald, your pheromone levels are off the charts. Direct exposure to the Kazon leader could have significant consequences." Despite the doctor's warning, Commander Hawkins stood firm. "We don't have a choice. Earth wants this alliance secured at any cost." The door to the medical unit slid open, revealing Supreme Leader Zorax flanked by a small group of council members. The moment they stepped inside, the effect was instantaneous. Zorax's eyes widened, his nostrils flaring as he inhaled deeply. "By the ancient stars," Zorax breathed, his usual composure cracking. This is remarkable." Gerald watched in fascination as the Kazon leader's posture changed, becoming more relaxed and open. The council members behind him exhibited similar reactions, their faces a mix of surprise and wonder. Zorax approached Gerald, his eyes never leaving the human's scarred face. "I see now why Raya has been so affected. This could change everything." Without warning, Zorax turned to his delegation. "From this moment, exposure to the human Gerald's pheromones will be mandatory for all high-ranking officials, starting with myself and the council." Gasps and murmurs erupted from the group. One council member stepped forward, his voice trembling. "But Supreme Leader, our traditions are killing us," Zorax interrupted. "We must evolve or perish." As the implications of Zorax's proclamation sank in, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Commander Hawkins's communicator crackled to life. "Commander, we have a situation. General Krell has launched a military coup. He's seized control of key government buildings and declared Zorax unfit for leadership." The room erupted into chaos. Zorax's face contorted with anger, while his council members argued amongst themselves. Amidst the commotion, the door burst open once again. A group of Kazon females, led by the purple-eyed Lyra, stormed into the medical unit. "We're here to help," Lyra announced, her eyes locking onto Gerald. As she approached him, her body visibly tensed, muscles rippling beneath her skin. What's happening to me?" Dr. Chen rushed to scan Lyra, her eyes widening at the results. Incredible. Her dormant genetic traits are activating at an accelerated rate. Enhanced strength, speed, cognitive function. Raya stood from her bed, her movements fluid and graceful. "I feel it too. We're changing, adapting." Dr. Chen's mind raced with possibilities. "We could use this. If we expose a select group of volunteers to Gerald's pheromones, we could create an elite force capable of resisting Krell's coup." Raya's eyes gleamed with commitment. "I'll lead them. My exposure has been the longest. I'm the most adapted." As they formulated their plan, the ground shook with a distant explosion. Commander Hawkins received another urgent transmission. "The Zorn ship has declocked. They're launching an attack on the embassy." Gerald's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. Krell's forces were closing in from one side, while Zorn missiles rained down from above. The fate of two species now rested on his shoulders. Dr. Chen gripped his arm. "Gerald, we need to move you to a secure location. Your pheromones are intensifying with larger groups. We can't risk you falling into enemy hands." As they rushed towards the embassy's underground bunker, Gerald could feel the effect he was having on the Kazon around him. Raya and Lyra flanked him, their movements becoming more synchronized and powerful with each passing moment. They reached the bunker just as another explosion rocked the building. Inside, Gerald found himself surrounded by a mix of human staff and Kazan volunteers, all looking to him with a combination of fear and hope. Raya stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "We don't have much time. Those who wish to volunteer for enhancement, step forward now." A group of Kazon, both male and female, moved towards Gerald without hesitation. As they drew closer, he could see the changes beginning to take hold, muscles tightening, eyes sharpening, movements becoming more fluid. Dr. Chen worked feverishly to monitor the transformations, her face a mix of scientific fascination and moral concern. "Gerald, the intensity of exposure is critical. Too much could be dangerous, but too little might not be enough to combat Krell's forces or the Zorn." As the newly enhanced Kazon prepared for battle, Gerald locked eyes with Raya once more. In that moment, he knew he faced a crucial decision. He could attempt to neutralize his pheromone production, potentially saving himself but dooming the Kazon to defeat. Or he could embrace this power, risking his own health and humanity to give them a fighting chance. The bunker shook with another impact. Time was running out. Gerald took a deep breath, the weight of two worlds pressing down on him. Whatever he decided, there was no going back. The next few moments would shape the future of human-Kazon relations and the balance of power in the galaxy. Galaxy. Gerald took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he knew he had to do. "Dr. Chen," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them, "I need to remove my protective suit." The doctor's eyes widened in alarm. "Gerald, that's incredibly dangerous. The direct exposure could—" "It's our only chance," Gerald interrupted, already reaching for the seals of his suit. "We need to maximize the effect." Before anyone could stop him, Gerald unsealed his protective gear and stripped it off, exposing his scarred skin to the Kazan atmosphere. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. A wave of potent pheromones filled the air, visible as a faint shimmering mist. Raya gasped, her body arching as if struck by lightning. Her iridescent skin began to pulse with intricate, glowing patterns, spreading across her body like a living tattoo. "Incredible," Dr. Chen breathed, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her concern. She watched in fascination as Raya's muscles rippled and tightened, her entire physique becoming more defined and powerful. Lyra and the other Kazon females near Gerald underwent similar transformations. Their bodies pulsed with newfound energy, eyes sharpening with heightened awareness. Commander Hawkins' communicator crackled urgently. "Commander, something's happening to Krell's forces. They're falling back." Outside, the conservative Kazon troops surrounding the embassy stumbled and swayed, their movements uncoordinated. The cloud of Gerald's intensified pheromones had reached them, but instead of enhancing their abilities, it left them disoriented and confused. Supreme Leader Zorax, witnessing the dramatic changes, stepped forward. His voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Behold the power of change. Gerald of Earth is a sacred being, sent to usher in a new era for our people." The proclamation spread rapidly among the Kazon, swaying many who had been uncertain about the alliance with humans. Raya, her body humming with newfound power, turned to her transformed squad. "We must defend against the Zorn attack. Follow me." As they moved to engage the Zorn forces, Dr. Chen noticed something extraordinary. The enhanced Kazon seemed to be communicating without speaking, moving with uncanny coordination. "They've developed some form of telepathy," she muttered, furiously taking notes on her tablet. "The pheromones must have awakened latent psychic abilities." Raya led her team outside, their movements fluid and synchronized. As they approached the Zorn ship hovering above the embassy, Raya felt a strange connection forming in her mind. Concentrating, she found she could sense the ship's systems, its defenses, its weaknesses. I can see inside their ship, she called out to her team. Focus your attacks on the port side, near the engine housing. The enhanced Kazan struck with precision, their coordinated assault catching the Zorn completely off guard. The scout ship's weapons seemed to glance harmlessly off the Kazan's reinforced bodies. Inside the embassy, Gerald stumbled, his face flushed with fever. Dr. Chen rushed to his side, her medical scanner beeping urgently. His body temperature is skyrocketing, she reported to Commander Hawkins. The pheromone production is overwhelming his system. If we don't stabilize him soon... Hawkins nodded grimly, activating her secure comlink to Earth. This is Commander Hawkins. We need emergency authorization for experimental bioaugmentation. It's our only chance to save Gerald and secure this alliance. As they awaited Earth's response, the battle outside reached its climax. Raya, her mind merged with the Zorn ship's systems, located a critical weakness. With a thought, she directed her team's attack, and the Zorn vessel shuddered under the assault. "They're retreating!" Lyra shouted, her enhanced vision tracking the ship as it fled into the upper atmosphere. The victory was short-lived, however, as alarms blared from the medical bay. Gerald had collapsed, his body convulsing as it struggled to cope with the intense pheromone production. "Authorization granted," Hawkins's communicator crackled. "Experimental bioaugmentation equipment is being teleported to your location now." Dr. Chen sprang into action as the complex machinery materialized. She worked feverishly, attaching sensors and injectors to Gerald's trembling form. Raya burst into the room, her newly awakened senses immediately attuned to Gerald's condition. "Let me help," she insisted, moving to Gerald's side. "I can support him mentally during the procedure." As Dr. Chen initiated the risky bioaugmentation process, Raya placed her hands on Gerald's temples. Her mind reached out, forming a tenuous psychic link with the human who had changed everything. In that moment, as human technology and Kazon evolution intertwined, the fate of both their species hung in the balance. Gerald's body arched, his scars glowing with an otherworldly light as the procedure reached its critical phase. Bathing the room in an ethereal glow. Gerald's body convulsed one final time before falling still, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Dr. Chen's eyes darted between her patient and the bioaugmentation equipment. "It's working," she breathed, relief evident in her voice. "His vital signs are stabilizing." Raya's hands remained firmly planted on Gerald's temples, her eyes closed in deep concentration. As the psychic link solidified, she found herself swept into the current of Gerald's consciousness. Memories flashed before her, vivid and raw. She saw a younger Gerald, his face unmarred, laughing with friends. Then came the accident, the searing pain of his injuries, and the long, lonely recovery. Raya felt the sting of rejection as people recoiled from his scars, the isolation that had become his constant companion. Tears streamed down Raya's face as she experienced Gerald's pain firsthand. She understood now, on a level deeper than words could express, the true strength of the man who had changed her world. As the bioaugmentation process continued, Gerald's scars began to shift and change. The angry red lines faded, replaced by intricate glowing patterns that pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. The transformation spread across his body, creating a mesmerizing display of bioluminescence that mirrored the patterns on Raya's own transformed skin. Dr. Chen watched in awe, her scientific mind racing to comprehend the implications. "It's as if his body is adapting to the Kazon atmosphere on a cellular level," she muttered, furiously tapping notes into her tablet. "This goes beyond anything we've ever seen in xenobiology." Commander Hawkins leaned in, her eyes wide. "What does this mean for the Alliance?" Before Dr. Chen could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A technician burst into the room, his face pale. "Commander, we're detecting a massive surge of pheromone activity. It's spreading across the entire capital city." Hawkins turned to the window, her jaw dropping as she witnessed the scene unfolding outside. A shimmering mist rolled through the streets, enveloping Kazon citizens in its wake. Those touched by the cloud underwent rapid transformations, their bodies pulsing with newfound energy and ability. "It's not just the city," the technician added, his voice trembling. "Reports are coming in from across the planet. The effect is spreading exponentially. Supreme Leader Zorax strode into the room, his eyes fixed on Gerald's transformed body. "By the ancient stars," he whispered, awe and trepidation warring in his voice. "This changes everything." Zorax activated his personal communicator. "Assemble the High Council immediately. We must address this evolution before panic spreads." As Zorax hurried out, Dr. Chen's equipment beeped insistently. "Gerald's stabilizing," she announced. "He should regain consciousness soon." Raya's eyes fluttered open, her psychic connection with Gerald slowly fading. She stumbled back, overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience. I felt... She struggled to find the words. He's suffered so much, and yet he's still so strong. Commander Hawkins stepped forward, her posture tense. "Doctor, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with here. What are the full implications of Gerald's transformation?" Dr. Chen's fingers flew across her tablet, analyzing the flood of data. "Based on these readings, Gerald's physiology has become a hybrid of human and Kazan biology. His pheromone production has reached a new equilibrium, more potent and stable than before. But that's not all." She paused, her eyes widening. "His DNA appears to have gained adaptive properties. In theory, he could potentially enhance other alien biologies as well." The implications hung heavy in the air. Hawkins opened her mouth to respond when another alarm blared. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a massive fleet of ships entering the Kazan system. "Zorn!" Hawkins hissed. "They're here." On the Zorn command ship, Emperor Vexikar received the report from his scout vessel with cold calculation. His compound eyes narrowed as he processed the information about the Kazan's unexpected evolution. "Accelerate the invasion," he ordered, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. "We must secure this Gerald and harness the power of these transformative pheromones. With such a weapon, the Zorn Empire will be unstoppable." Back in the medical bay, Gerald's eyes snapped open. He sat up abruptly, his newly transformed body pulsing with energy, his gaze locked with Raya's, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "We need to address the High Council," Gerald said, his voice steady and clear. "It's the only way to unite the Kazan against the Zorn threat." As Gerald spoke, a group of Kazan guards entered the room, their bodies already showing signs of enhancement. They moved with fluid grace, their eyes sharp and alert. "We'll escort you to the council chambers," the lead guard announced. "But we must hurry. The city is in chaos." Gerald nodded, standing up with newfound strength. As he moved, his bioluminescent patterns shimmered, casting an otherworldly glow around him. Raya fell into step beside him, her own transformed body resonating with his presence. As they made their way through the corridors of the embassy, Gerald's enhanced senses picked up the distant sounds of confusion and conflict. The pheromone cloud had triggered widespread changes, and not everyone was adapting smoothly. "We need to bring order to this chaos," Raya said, her voice filled with grit. "The Kazan must stand united if we're to have any hope against the Zorn." What they didn't know was that Zorn infiltrators were already moving through the city, their advanced exosuits shielding them from the effects of Gerald's pheromones. These silent saboteurs worked methodically, disabling defense systems and gathering crucial intelligence. As Gerald and his escort approached the High Council chambers, the weight of responsibility settled heavily upon him. The fate of two civilizations now rested on his shoulders, with the threat of both internal strife and external invasion looming large. The doors to the council chambers loomed before them, the sounds of heated debate echoing from within. Gerald took a deep breath, his transformed body humming with energy. Whatever happened next would shape the future of human-Kazan relations and the balance of power in the galaxy. With a nod to Raya, Gerald stepped forward. The doors parted, revealing the assembled Kazian leaders, their eyes widening at the sight of his transformed appearance. The room fell silent as Gerald entered, ready to address the council and face whatever challenges lay ahead. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to Gerald, his luminescent form casting an eerie glow across the room. Before Gerald could utter a word, the lights flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. Panicked murmurs rippled through the assembly, but Gerald's bioluminescent patterns shone brighter, a beacon in the gloom. "Everyone, remain calm," Gerald's voice cut through the confusion. "We need to—" His words were drowned out by a series of distant explosions. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the acrid smell of smoke wafted through the air. Raya's enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. She closed her eyes, concentrating on the subtle vibrations and scents permeating the building. Her eyes snapped open, filled with alarm. "Zorn infiltrators," she hissed. "They've attacked the power grid." Supreme Leader Zorax's voice boomed through the darkness. "Initiate emergency protocols. We must secure the capital." As chaos erupted in the chamber, Gerald felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. His pheromone production kicked into high gear, an instinctive response to the crisis. The air grew thick with an invisible mist, seeping into the ventilation systems and spreading rapidly throughout the city. Outside, panic gripped the streets as the blackout took hold. But amidst the darkness, points of light began to appear. Kazan citizens, exposed to Gerald's supercharged pheromones, underwent rapid transformations. Bioluminescent patterns bloomed across their skin, each unique and pulsing with newfound energy. Raya gripped Gerald's arm, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. "Your pheromones, they're affecting everyone." Gerald nodded, his mind racing. "We need to use this to our advantage. Raya, can you sense the Zorn infiltrators?" Raya closed her eyes, extending her telepathic abilities. Images flashed through her mind, shadowy figures moving through back alleys, their exosuits shielding them from the transformative mist. "I can track them," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "But we'll need help to stop them." Gerald turned to the assembled council members, many of whom were still reeling from their sudden evolution. "Listen to me," he said, his voice carrying a newfound authority. "The Zorn are here, but we have the power to stop them. Each of you has been given unique abilities. It's time to use them." As if in response to his words, a young Kazan guard stumbled forward, his hands crackling with electrical energy. Another counselor found herself able to manipulate the very air around her, creating swirling eddies of wind. Raya quickly organized a group of these newly empowered Kazan. "Follow me," she commanded. "We'll root out the infiltrators." As Raya's team departed, Gerald turned to Supreme Leader Zorax. "We need to get you and the council to safety. Is there a secure location?" Zorax nodded grimly. "There's an underground bunker, but not everyone will agree to go." True to Zorax's words, a group of counselors, led by General Krell's loyalists, began to protest. "We cannot abandon the capital," one shouted. "This is a ploy to seize power." The tension in the room escalated, threatening to erupt into violence. Gerald, sensing the danger, made a split-second decision. He focused his mind, channeling his pheromone production to new heights. The air grew thick with the potent mist, engulfing both factions. The effect was immediate and profound. The warring Kazan underwent another wave of evolution, their bodies and minds stretching to accommodate the influx of change. As the transformation subsided, something unexpected happened. The enhanced empathic abilities brought on by the evolution allowed the Kazan to sense each other's emotions and motivations. Decades of mistrust and ideological differences melted away in the face of this shared experience. One of Krell's loyalists stumbled forward, his eyes wide with realization. I understand now. We've been blinded by our differences." Zorax stepped forward, extending a hand to his former adversary. "Then let us move forward together, for the good of all Kazan." As the newfound unity settled over the group, alarms blared to life. A holographic display flickered in the center of the room, showing a massive fleet entering the Kazan system. Gerald's heart sank as he recognized the distinctive silhouettes of Zorn warships. "They're here," he said, his voice grim. "The invasion has begun." Zorax turned to Gerald, his eyes filled with commitment. "You've given us the power to evolve. Now, we must use it to defend our world." As the Kazan leaders began to strategize, Gerald's mind raced. The transformative pheromones had changed everything, creating a new society in a matter of hours. But would it be enough to face the might of the Zorn Empire? Outside, Raya and her team cornered the last of the Zorn infiltrators. As they prepared to strike, the ground shook with the distant impact of the first Zorn bombardment. The real battle was about to begin, and the fate of both Kazon and humanity hung in the balance. Balance. The real battle was about to begin, and the fate of both Kazon and humanity hung in the balance. Gerald's eyes narrowed as he processed the gravity of the situation. He turned to the assembled Kazon leaders, their bodies still adjusting to their recent transformations. "We need to act now," he said, his voice carrying a newfound authority. "The Zorn are here, but we have the power to stop them." Supreme Leader Zorax nodded, his luminescent patterns pulsing with perseverance. "What do you propose, Gerald?" Gerald's mind raced, formulating a plan that would utilize their newfound abilities. "We need to take the fight to them," he said, "in the upper atmosphere." Raya, who had just returned from neutralizing the Zorn infiltrators, stepped forward. "I can sense their fleet," she said, her eyes closed in concentration. "They're massive, but uncertain. They don't know what to make of the changes on our planet." Gerald nodded, a plan crystallizing in his mind. "Then we'll give them something to think about. We need to get to the spacecraft hangar." As they moved through the city, Gerald marveled at the transformation around them. Kazon citizens, their bodies now adorned with bioluminescent patterns, were using their new abilities to restore order and prepare for the coming battle. At the hangar, a group of engineers was already modifying a squadron of spacecraft, adapting them to accommodate their enhanced pilots. Gerald approached one of the lead engineers, his eyes widening at the sight of the sleek, bio-integrated vessels. "How soon can we launch?" Gerald asked. The engineer, his hands crackling with bioelectrical energy, grinned. "They're ready now. We've incorporated some improvements." Gerald and Raya boarded the lead ship, joined by a team of the most adept enhanced Kazon. As they strapped in, Gerald felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. His pheromone production kicked into overdrive, filling the cabin with a visible mist. "Everyone ready?" he asked, receiving nods from his team. "Then let's show the Zorn what we're capable of." The squadron took off, streaking into the sky. As they ascended, Gerald focused his mind, channeling his pheromone production to new heights. A massive, visible cloud began to form around their ships, expanding rapidly to encompass the entire planet. In the Zorn flagship, Emperor Vexcar watched with growing concern as his sensors detected the anomalous cloud enveloping the Kazon homeworld. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his compound eyes narrowing. His science officer, mandibles clicking nervously, responded, "Unknown, Emperor. Our scans can't penetrate it. I recommend we alter course to avoid—" "No!" Vexcar interrupted. "We will not be deterred by some planetary phenomenon. Press the attack." Back in the Kazan atmosphere, Raya closed her eyes, extending her telepathic abilities. She connected with the minds of the other enhanced Kazan, creating a vast psychic network. "I can feel them all," she said, her voice filled with awe. "We're linked." Gerald nodded, understanding the implications. "Then let's put it to use. Everyone, focus on the cloud. Shape it, move it. Make it reach out to the Zorn fleet." The enhanced Kazan concentrated, their combined will manipulating the pheromone cloud. Tendrils of mist extended into space, wrapping around the approaching Zorn vessels. Aboard the Zorn ships, alarms blared as systems began to malfunction. The pheromones interacting with the biomechanical technology of the Zorn caused cascading failures throughout the fleet. "Emperor!" a Zorn officer called out, panic evident in his voice. "We're losing power. Weapons are offline." Vexcar snarled, his exoskeleton filled with rage. "Impossible! Push through the cloud! We must capture the source of this power!" As the Zorn flagship breached the planet's atmosphere, it was met by a sight that sent shockwaves through the invasion force. A coalition of enhanced Kazon warriors, led by Supreme Leader Zorax himself, soared through the air to engage the massive ship. Zorax, his body crackling with bioelectrical energy, called out to his forces, "For Kazon, for our future!" The enhanced Kazon swarmed the Zorn flagship, their newfound abilities allowing them to tear through the ship's outer defenses. Some manipulated energy fields to deflect incoming fire, while others used their strength to rip apart hull plating. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Dr. Chen and Commander Hawkins worked feverishly to bring the planetary defense systems back online. As the last connections were made, Chen turned to Hawkins with a grim smile. "It's ready," she said. "The electromagnetic pulse is calibrated to target Zorn technology, but we'll only get one shot." Hawkins nodded, her finger hovering over the activation switch. "Let's make it count." As they triggered the pulse, Gerald sensed the buildup of energy. He called out to his team, "Brace yourselves and focus on the cloud." The electromagnetic pulse rippled through the pheromone cloud, its power amplified by the unique properties of Gerald's biological compounds. It swept through the Zorn fleet, overwhelming their already compromised systems. In the span of seconds, the might of the Zorn invasion force was reduced to a collection of drifting, powerless hulks. Only the flagship, protected by its more advanced shielding, remained operational, though heavily damaged. As the flagship descended towards the Kazan capital, Gerald knew the final confrontation was at hand. He turned to Raya, their bioluminescent patterns synchronizing in a display of unity. "Are you ready?" he asked. Raya nodded, her eyes filled with drive. "Together," she replied. Their ship landed in the central plaza of the capital, just as the imposing figure of Emperor Vexkar emerged from his crashed vessel. The Zorn leader was encased in an advanced exosuit, its surface rippling with energy that kept the transformative pheromones at bay. Vexkar's compound eyes fixed on Gerald, recognizing him as the source of the power that had decimated his fleet. "You!" he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "Face me, human. Let us settle this conflict as warriors." Gerald stepped forward, his transformed body humming with energy. He could feel Raya's presence in his mind, their psychic link providing comfort and strength. "I accept your challenge, Emperor Vexakar," Gerald replied, his voice steady and clear. "Let's end this." As the two adversaries squared off in the plaza, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The enhanced Kazan watched with suspenseful pause, their newfound abilities poised to defend their homeworld. And high above, the remnants of the once mighty Zorn fleet drifted silently, a testament to the incredible power unleashed by Gerald's transformation. The final battle was about to begin, with the future of human-Kazan relations and the balance of power in the galaxy at stake.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.